It was just an ordinary day, or at least I thought so. But one envelope changed everything. Her secret wasn't just hidden, it was buried deep in plain sight. And it all started with those credit card statements. And let me say this, every relationship has its challenges. But sometimes you uncover something so shocking, you don't know whether to feel betrayed, angry, or just lost. Let me tell you my story. Before we dive into this story, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from? Share your city or country in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. It's always fascinating to connect with people from all over the world. It was just an ordinary day, or at least I thought so. But one envelope changed everything. Her secret wasn't just hidden. It was buried deep in plain sight, and it all started with those credit card statements. Before we dive into this story, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from? Share your city or country in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. It's always fascinating to connect with people from all over the world. And let me say this, every relationship has its challenges. But sometimes you uncover something so shocking, you don't know whether to feel betrayed, angry, or just lost. Let me tell you my story. It started one evening when I came home from work. The house was quiet, too quiet. Normally, my wife would be in the kitchen humming to her favorite songs, or maybe we'd be chatting about our day. But that day, silence. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured she was just tired or out running errands. But as I walked into the living room, I saw an envelope sitting on the coffee table, addressed to her. It was from a credit card company I didn't recognize. Now, I don't know about you, but we always discussed finances openly, or so I thought. We had a joint account, and I believed we were on the same page about everything. But something about this envelope made me pause. I picked it up, hesitated for a moment, and then placed it back down. It's probably nothing, I told myself. But my gut was screaming otherwise. I didn't want to invade her privacy, so I left it untouched. Little did I know that one decision would change everything. For the next few days, I couldn't shake the image of that envelope. Every time I saw it on the coffee table, unopened and untouched, a million questions raced through my mind. What was she hiding? Was it even something to worry about? Or was I overthinking, letting my imagination get the best of me? One evening, as we were sitting down for dinner, I casually brought up the topic of finances. "Hey," I said, trying to sound nonchalant, "have we gotten any new bills lately?" Her reaction was subtle, but I caught it. A slight pause, her fork hovering mid-air, and a quick flick of her eyes toward the living room. Then she smiled and said, "No, just the usual." That was it. My gut told me something was off, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Later that night, when she had gone to bed, I found myself standing in front of the coffee table, staring at that envelope again. My hands trembled as I picked it up. Am I really about to do this? I thought. But curiosity, or maybe it was instinct, got the better of me. I carefully opened it, trying to convince myself that it was no big deal, just a routine credit card statement. But what I found inside wasn't routine at all. It was like opening Pandora's box. My eyes scanned the paper, expecting to see mundane purchases, groceries, gas, maybe a coffee shop here or there. But what I found instead made my heart pound. There were charges that didn't add up. A hotel reservation, not for one night but several. High-end restaurant bills that I'd never heard her mention. Then, the one that froze me in my tracks. A jewelry store. Not just any jewelry store, a place we'd walked past before. One she'd pointed out as being way out of our league. But here it was, on this statement, a hefty charge that could only mean one thing. I flipped through the rest of the pages, each transaction screaming louder than the last. Spa treatments, boutique clothing stores, and worst of all, recurring charges from an app I didn't recognize. I grabbed my phone and searched for the app. It was one of those private messaging platforms. My stomach sank. All this time, while I'd been working late nights to keep us afloat, she had been living a double life, sneaking around, hiding things right under my nose. The realization hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just carelessness. This was deliberate, calculated, a betrayal that ran deeper than I'd ever imagined. This wasn't the moment to act on impulse. I knew that. If I was going to confront her, I needed more than a piece of paper. I needed the full picture. Every detail, every proof, every undeniable fact. I logged into our shared bank account, the glow of the screen illuminating my face. Sure enough, more discrepancies. Transfers I didn't recognize, withdrawals I hadn't authorized. She had been careful, but not careful enough. Next, I searched for that app from the credit card statement. Its purpose was clear. It promised privacy, discretion, and secrecy. Perfect for someone hiding a second life. I created an account and, using her email, tried a password I knew she often used. It worked. My stomach churned as I scrolled through the messages. There was no mistaking it now. Her conversations were intimate, familiar, and worst of all, filled with plans. Plans that didn't include me, trips, dinners, moments she had shared with someone else while I was at home waiting for her. But that wasn't the worst part. One message stood out. "He has no idea, I've got it all under control." The words echoed in my head like a sinister whisper. My world, my trust, my life. It had all been manipulated, taken for granted. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of the betrayal pressing down on me. I could feel the storm brewing inside, but I forced myself to stay calm. This wasn't the time to break down. It was the time to prepare. I took screenshots of everything, every transaction, every message. I saved it all to a secure folder. If she wanted to play this game, she would soon realize I was 2 steps ahead. The air in the room felt heavy, almost suffocating as the truth lay bare between them. The evidence sat on the table, undeniable and damning. A silent witness to the betrayal. The once familiar warmth in the atmosphere had turned cold, replaced by an unsettling tension. Each word carried the weight of disappointment and hurt. The lies that had been meticulously crafted to maintain the illusion of trust were now unraveling, thread by thread. Every denial, every excuse, only fueled the growing storm of emotions. The betrayal was not just in the actions, but in the thoughtless disregard for the foundation they had built together. The confrontation was not just about uncovering secrets. It was the shattering of a bond that once seemed unbreakable. The aftermath was a whirlwind of emotions, a mix of anger, disbelief, and profound sadness. The silence that followed the confrontation was deafening, a stark contrast to the heated words exchanged moments earlier. It was as though time had slowed, allowing the reality of the situation to sink in fully. Questions flooded the mind, each one more painful than the last. How had it come to this? Was there a moment when things could have been different? The weight of the betrayal lingered heavily, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. The room, once filled with memories of happier times, now felt like a battleground littered with shards of trust. But even amidst the chaos, clarity began to emerge. This was a turning point, a moment to decide whether to rebuild or to walk away. The pain was undeniable, but so was the resolve. This wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about reclaiming dignity and strength. And while the scars of the experience would remain, they would also serve as a reminder. Every ending carries the seed of a new beginning.